Can't believe we're live. Hello, and I suppose this isn't a welcome back to an emergency episode of Green and White brought to you by Argyle Life. Stephen Schumacher has been announced as the head coach of fellow Championship club Stoke City. And that also includes who's going with him? Savannah. I can't say his name. That guy. Mark Hughes and Darren Beshett going to the Bet365 alongside him. Initially announced as manager of Plymouth Argyle on the 7th of December 2021, Stephen Schumacher succeeded Ryan Lowe into the role, beginning his tenure with a 1-1 draw away up at MK Dons, which is arguably one of our favourite away days in recent memory. 10 games later, so Argyle pushed Champions League winners Chelsea all the way, and despite December upheaval and the appointment of a managerial rookie into his first role, Argyle continued to push for the playoffs, missing out on the final day to the aforementioned MK Dons. The 2022-23 season rolls round and Schumacher inspires his side to achieve the unthinkable, pipping both Ipswich Town and Sheffield Wednesday to the League One title while collecting 101 points. Trips to Derby, Shrewsbury, Morecambe, and of course Port Vale, along with a phenomenal home form, see Argyle through, while Schumacher picks up the EFL League One Manager of the Year award, all alongside visiting Wembley for some pizza action. This season, Shuey, as he's more affectionately known. Am I doing this in a tone where he sounds like he's dead? I feel like I am.
He's dead to us. So I think that's fine.
We've gone bold straight away. Currently had us sat in 16th place. Well, the away form has been hit and miss, shall we say. But obviously joining me tonight to talk about all things Stephen Schumacher, his move to Stoke City and any potential replacements is fresh from his stint on basically every single BBC outlet there is. Spotlight, BBC Stoke, BBC Radio Devon. Obviously, Joe Bell. How's things?
Match of the day need a new pundit after Ian Wright is leaving, so I thought I'd start my campaigning early. How's things? Yeah, still stunned, but I'm sure we'll get into the crux of it in a minute.
Yeah, Matt Smith, super fan, Finley Allen. How's things?
Oh, yeah, all good, thank you. All good. The Doctor Who actor. But yes, all good. Obviously, generally, but this news is quite a kick in the teeth. Got to be honest.
And bonjour, ça va, John?
Ça va très bien, merci. Yes, I'm in France and, of course, doing what all self-respecting people do when they've gone on a nice holiday to the south of France, which is join a podcast full of people back in Plymouth or Norwich or Beverly Hills or wherever Aaron is today.
Brilliant. That didn't take long, did it? This is just my front room, which you weirdly believed was the case. John, whilst we've got you then, I'll stop talking and let you take over. Why don't you give us your initial thoughts? How are you feeling about the move before we move on to some of Schumacher's highlights?
Yeah, I feel like a huge range of emotions at once, I think, about this. I feel incredibly sad and really disappointed and very surprised and quite angry. Also quite excited, which I guess I'll come on to last, just because that's probably the most counterintuitive of the emotions that I'm feeling at the moment. I think when I first heard sort of very far-fetched sounding rumours about Peter Coates' helicopter being spotted in Plymouth, I thought it was classic, overthinking from a sometime contributor to this podcast who likes to overanalyze both flight radar movements and also how close managers get to the home fans when they're doing their round of applause. This individual actually, I believe, said that Tamani Diagouraga back in the day waved goodbye to our fans 3 times before he eventually did never play for us again. So
this is the same man who did say that Schumacher got a bit too close to the Devonport end and looked like he was going, and we all laughed at him.
Yeah, and the worst thing, actually, arguably the worst thing about this is talking about sad for those who are regular listeners. The worst thing about this news is he's going to think he was right about that, and it will encourage him to do more kind of body language reading, which
I'm glad he's not here tonight, because I don't think we'll be able to fit his ego in the squares that we've got.
But no. So when I first heard the rumor, based on that, I thought it sounded preposterous because of all the things I've just mentioned do actually sound objectively quite preposterous. But like, I also just couldn't see it. Obviously he's been linked with a lot of other jobs, which ostensibly he has. Obviously, we don't know this for a fact, but it seems like he may have had the opportunity to leave before. He was linked with the Sunderland job quite heavily, and that obviously that didn't happen. And with that one, I was actually a little bit worried because I was thinking, obviously Sunderland are a legitimately massive club and got to the playoffs last year, and only sort of mildly stuck in a rut this season. But with Stoke, I just thought, why? Like, it sounded like Ryan Dilks when he was talking about this on the second tier pod the other day, but I shared completely his reaction. It just didn't make any sense to me. I mean, yeah, obviously we're above them in the table. It's only 3 points or so, and it's still very early days. They could very easily finish above us. But it's a club that is totally stuck in a rut, as far as I can see, has not really had any success for quite a number of years now. And most importantly, it's been just a graveyard for young managers, with profiles like Steven Schumacher, and in many cases, actually, probably better profiles in terms of being more experienced. None of them have done well there. And I do not think Gary Rowett is a bad manager. I do not think Nathan Jones is a bad manager. Certainly do not think Alex Neil is a bad manager. Michael O'Neill, and personally a little bit more jury out on, but maybe that's just me. But these are good managers who have gone in there and failed. Very good managers in some cases, and clearly there is a common denominator for that, and it isn't resources. Obviously we know they've got a lot of resources, certainly more than we have, but it doesn't seem like, for whatever reason, there's a sustainable plan for success at the club. Just sort of more kind of like vibes based. It just doesn't seem like there's a good vibe there. The fans have huge expectations. There's a huge risk if you don't beat them. So anyway, for all those reasons, but it would be a very odd career choice for a man who at the moment enjoys what is pretty much unicorn status in this league, which is being totally revered and having almost 100% job security in a championship club, albeit obviously with budgetary challenges, but a club that, unlike Stoke, I think is going in a positive direction. At the moment, that's undeniable. Stoke are not going in a positive direction at the moment. We are. So I didn't really think much of it when I heard about it, and then obviously it's become very clear over the last 24 to 36 hours that that it's happening. Now we know it's happened. I'm still sort of piecing through my emotions. I believe that Shuey has made some comments about Stoke. I don't think he's made any comments about us yet. So I'm obviously, given how important Ryan Lowe's comments on the way out the door were for establishing how he was remembered among Argyle fans, I want to wait and see what Shuey has to say about us, if anything. And I would hope he sounds agonized and like this was a difficult decision, because at the moment, I sort of feel like we've been tossed aside. This is just kind of a complete shot in the eye for us as a club. A complete lack of vote of confidence in a direction that we're all going. That we.
I'm not laughing at you, John. I'm laughing at these comments that all clearly want sound down on the pod. Sorry, carry on. Oh, and the man from France has frozen.
Sorry, actually, you were interrupting me, and then I froze anyway. So that was. I'll let others speak, but I guess just fast forward to my sort of final emotions. You can tell it's a bit of a cocktail. I do actually feel excited because I think for the first time in 4 years, really, we're not going to be managed by the same sort of regime. Some very ominous sounding word, but you know what I mean, right? I mean, low to Schumacher was obviously a very big change of manager, but it wasn't. It was an internal appointment. It was the same kind of setup. The last time we had to make a kind of external appointment, we were in League Two. It was pre-COVID. We've been on a wild ride since then. Probably one that is beyond the imagination of most of our supporters, certainly in terms of how quickly we've done it and the manner in which we've done it. And I think we are a club that is massively on the up. I think now we're a championship club. We're going to be a very attractive destination for a lot of managers. I think there'll be a lot of people throwing their names in the ring for this who are the sort of people 2 years ago that we would probably not have imagined would want anything to do with us in the near-term future. So, and obviously we've got a setup beyond the manager and the sort of immediate coaching staff that I really trust. So, on that sense, I actually think this is a huge opportunity to get this appointment right and either continue on the trajectory we're on, or who knows, even do better. Who knows? But I guess that's for later in the pod. But so I'm not feeling it's not an unalloyed disappointment, but I am I am gutted.
Sorry, John. Peter Graham has said, "Is he ever going to let anybody else speak?"
You asked, Aaron.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even think you were talking that long. Go on, Joe.
I've got some bad news for Peter about how long these podcasts tend to last. But anyway,
the unedited version going on quite some time. Oh, Joe, you're on.
Pretty.
You're not doing very well, are you? Go on.
Sorry, I'm not used to these live broadcasts, am I? I'm used to pre-recording it, and that normally gets edited out. I think stunned would be the initial response to it. I think, first of all, live comments were a really bad idea, Aaron, because I can't keep a straight face at what's coming in here. I think, stunned is my overall response
to answer Andy Davis's question, he will be soon. Sorry, Joe.
It will, yeah. Anyway, as I was saying before, John tried to get another word in edgeways. Stunned, didn't expect it. Slightly disappointed with the timing. I mean, I'm not blinkered. I'm not deluded in the fact that one day he was going to leave us and go elsewhere. This was always going to be a stepping stone for him and his career. So I don't think we should ever kid ourselves to think that we were suddenly expecting a 25-year reign of Sir Alex Ferguson, where great success is brought to us all the time. I didn't expect it to be now. I sort of thought that he would at least see out our first season in the Championship. I didn't think that he would leave at Christmas time. And that's what's disappointing, I think, is the timing of the whole situation. We're in the middle of a really crucial run of games. We're just 13 days away from the transfer window opening, a pivotal transfer window in the future of the season. And I think we're all pretty aware of the football business, the football economics that goes on. And survival in the Championship this year is massively important. But it's not quite hit me yet what's gone on, but it is what it is. I mean, chapeau to him. He's obviously impressed somebody at Stoke City. He's obviously interviewed very well whenever that interview took place and how it's come about. So chapeau to him. Thanks for all the memories. I mean, we're going to come on to it. He's given us some unbelievable days. He's given us some great days at home, great days away. But that era now that lasted 4.5 years is over. It's time now for the football club to start afresh. We have a new vision. We have a new 5-year plan. That 5-year plan has just ended with Schumacher going to Stoke City. It didn't end with promotion. It's ended now. We have a new 5-year plan that was only announced a month ago, 6 weeks ago. So it starts afresh. It's a clean slate for whoever comes in. They'll come in with a transfer window to have a crack at, to build a squad that's capable of staying in the Championship. And as John says, it's a sort of a mix of emotions. It's a little bit of shock, a bit of sadness, a bit of disappointment, but equally tainted with a bit of excitement. And let's see what the next few weeks brings, because it's going to be a merry-go-round of names being thrown about here, there, and everywhere. So let's just see how it plays out.
Yeah, nice. Can you just confirm that your curtains are from the range, like the comments?
I'm not sure they are, actually. I'll have to ask my parents. I did see the comments.
I think that's enough on your curtains. Finn, let's talk about Shuey before we talk about him leaving. Where does he sit on the list of the best ever Argyle managers for you?
I mean, with the caveat of saying that I didn't start going to Argyle until 2010. So I didn't get to see the best of Sturrock, but I'd have to say, for me, the best. If you look at the budget that we had compared to if you compare it to the time that Stoke had and the budget he had compared to his competitors then, and then what we had to come up against with Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich and even clubs like Derby and stuff, he would have spent much more than me to get 101 points. Let's not forget, missing out on the playoffs in the season before. Granted, some of that was Ryan Lowe's work, but most of it was Stephen Schumacher's. Missing out on the playoffs the season before with a record points total for missing out on the playoffs in League One. So before I say anything else on the guy, I don't take away what he's done for the club. He's given me my best days as an Argyle fan, and probably some of the best days we will ever have. And first of all, thank you for that. I'm sure I'll come on to it later. There is a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth on the timing of the move and the club that he has gone to. No disrespect to Stoke City.
I mean, that sounds like disrespect to Stoke City.
I was going to say no disrespect, but it sounds like Finn might be about to disrespect Stoke City.
Well, sorry, Stoke City fans, but yes. Let's just leave that there for now.
I'd like to place on record my disrespect for Stoke City, and also say that I was disrespecting Stoke before it was cool as well.
Yeah, should we go through some more Shuey highlights then, John? What are yours?
Feels like a bad time to be reflecting on these joyous moments. Why
is it a bad time? Because we're not gonna reflect on them after tonight. Once this pod's out of the way, it's in Nancekivell's regime, isn't it? So might as well reflect on it now.
I just mean from a point of view of I'm not going to be sounding particularly enthusiastic or wistful, I guess, even though obviously even a week from now I'm sure some of my the sort of like how good these memories are will come back when it's not so fresh, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I was there at MK Dons in his first game in charge, which was brilliant. Total like siege mentality after Lowe left us. Wasn't a particularly memorable game, but a good point away from home, and more importantly, the away end was absolutely bouncing, and Shuey seemed to sort of hear some of the chants that were going on and came over all smiles at the end, which was sort of a great night, and I guess that feeling kind of is a bit reminiscent of what we're all feeling now, right? That was kind of a, well, screw you, then we're still a great club, we still have big fans, and we're still gonna make noise. Hopefully Saturday at Home Park will be another testament to that, and then Cardiff on Boxing Day as well, and I'm sure it will be. So there was that. I mean, Chelsea away, Aaron sort of mentioned, I guess, the real highlights. Chelsea away was a great day. Just sort of watching us not only compete with, but sort of actually go toe to toe with actually playing football against, a team who at that point at least were good, was a great memory. And then last season as a whole feels kind of like a blur still a little bit to me, but obviously some fantastic days. Both that I did and wasn't in attendance for. I mean, personally, we'll always remember Exeter at home as being a fantastic night. Derby at home, I have some family connections there as well, so that was a particularly enjoyable one for me after unfortunately missing the away game. And then then obviously Port Vale on the final day to sort of cap it all off was a great memory. And then even early this season, I just think that, and even the summer really, which was there was a time when there weren't really games going on, obviously apart from friendlies, but just sort of feeling like the club was buzzing and the city was buzzing and it was in a really positive place, and that we were not only able to be financially competitive to sign players like Whittaker and Mumba, but that they actually seemingly wanted to come here over what I'm sure were other possibilities and other options for them. After years and years of sort of having players insinuate that they don't like it down here, or it's miles away from their family in the north or in Scotland or wherever and they can't wait to leave, to have players actively want to come back and say, not only do I love playing for this club and this manager, but this is a great part of the world. Obviously, that's not one moment or one game, but I think for me, just that sort of feeling, that kind of all summer long hangover from being champions, but also that sort of excitement looking forward was just brilliant. And yeah, I think that feeling is probably what I'll remember more than necessarily individual games, as being the kind of distillation of what the Shuey era was. I could go on. I mean, there have been so many good memories, including this season, but I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, you don't want to be talking too much, John, on a podcast.
No.
On the 7th of December, then, what was that, 12? Yeah, 12 days ago, Stephen Schumacher uttered the words, "I'm still only young. I've only been a manager for 2 years. There is no rush for me to move anywhere. I'm in a brilliant place." He obviously didn't mean geographically. Joe, is there a bit of a Holloway factor to this move in the fact that he says he's happy and that he's settled, and then within a matter of weeks, does it leave a bit of a sour taste in the mouth? It does for me a little bit.
I'm glad he stopped short of saying he was off to B&Q to buy a tub of green and white paint to paint Smeaton's tower after he said those words. Yeah, I can see the comparison. I remember the day that Holloway left, or I certainly remember the day he tendered his resignation. It was my birthday, actually. So that was a crap one. But yeah, I mean, you know, and to be honest with you, I think we said it a couple of years ago when Ryan Lowe left, that I don't think as a fan base we've ever quite got over that incident because of everything that was said in the media. Every dream that we were sold was all hollow words by Holloway. So I do think, you know, and then with what happened with Ryan Lowe, obviously, you know, just compounded it a little bit. So yes, there is a Holloway-esque end to this tenure. I do think the situation is a bit different this time. I mean, obviously Holloway was, what were we, fourth in the championship at the time. We were going great guns. You know, the situation was totally different. So in a way, I don't know whether this one's a little bit worse, because although you're chasing the Premier League dream, with what's on the line this year, if we get relegated, probably outweighs that a little bit. I think it would be a real kick in the teeth if we were to work so hard as a club for 10 years to get into the Championship again, only then to fall out of it at the first time of asking. I think that wouldn't sit right with a lot of people. And you know, he's sort of abandoned that halfway through, isn't he? You know, what are we, 22 games in, and you know, his head has been turned by Stoke, and it's tough to take. But you know, as some of the comments are saying, you know, yes, all right, we can look back on the good times, and John's mentioned a fair few of them there. And there have been some great days. But equally, now is a time, once we're finished reflecting in tonight's episode, that we move on, and Birmingham City on Saturday is the start of the new, I don't want to use football ownership phrases that they come out with, saying it's a new dawn, it's a new vision, it's a new era and things, but it really is a fresh start. So everyone will be united. I know Nick from PAFC Displays there is planning something for Nance on Saturday, and it'd be great if people can support that and get behind it and really get the place rocking on Saturday. And you know, this will galvanise the group, I think, because they've had to spend the whole of last year, when we were being written off by national podcasts and journalists telling us that Shuey's a genius, it was a masterstroke, he's outperformed everything with his budget and all that. Well, yes, he did. I'm not taking away any of the work that Schumacher did, but now's the time on Saturday for that group of players to go out there and to prove to everyone it's not just the man in that box at the side of the pitch. It's those lads on the pitch that are really doing all the work. And I have full belief that on Saturday they'll be able to prove that point. And I hope that everyone really gets behind them on Saturday.
Yet again, big fan of these comments, so keep them coming in. Finn, you know, obviously Joe's touched on it there, but like, is loyalty in football just an illusion? Are we just idiots for believing that, you know, he was the man to break the mold?
Well, yeah, you can look at it both ways. Look, I think if we take out the fact that we are football fans, the situation here is that this is a man. And I was speaking to my dad about this yesterday, actually. This is a man who has seen a job offer come up where he's on potentially double or triple the wages. And if he was in any other sort of job role. Say if he worked in a shop, and you could say to him, well, you can move 3-4 hours closer to home and you get double your pay, and you can move your family up there, and we'll help you move your family up there. Of course you're going to take it.
And
Where
take some of
it-
your friends.
Sorry?
And take some of your friends, your new coaching friends.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at it like that and you take the fact that we're football fans out of it, then I suppose, yes, we are stupid, but you know, the kind of whole nature of being a football fan is to get behind your club and believe that the people that, and I genuinely do think that a lot of the people, pretty much all of the people at the club do have the best interest in heart to do with Argyle at the moment. So, but you want to always believe that as a fan, and believe that you know, players and management staff care, and so I can see it from both sides. So no, I don't think it's stupid, because I think it's natural of a football fan. But if you look at it like any other, if you want to look at it the kind of context it's any other job, which it is, it's just a job where you paid a lot of money and are kind of famous for it, then yes, I suppose, if that makes any sense.
Finn's kind of right in what he says, and I don't think I said this earlier today, and I'm not trying to knock Argyle in any way, because I did stress about you know, the size of Argyle and things, but Stoke's facilities right now are where we're going to be in a couple of years, but they're already in place. You know, Shuey will have bigger resources available to him. He will be able to have a better success rate in the transfer market, if you like, in terms of names. It maybe not necessarily have the hit rate of talent on the pitch as what he's had down here, but we shouldn't be blinkered by the whole football business and football economic side of this deal. Is that, as Finn says, you know, he is going to go to a club where in January it's inevitable he will have more money to spend to improve his squad. But equally, he's going there to improve his own position, and I don't think anyone should knock that. You know, if somebody said to me, I see your salary, I'm going to pay you 3 times more than that, but you got to go work in Glasgow, I'd put a kilt on and start reciting Brigadoon.
They can have you.
You know, I'd call myself Joe McBell and I'd start singing the Flower of Scotland walking through Glasgow. I'd be up there getting involved with it. So as much as we're hurting, as much as it's disappointing for us that he's not able to see the job through this season, we've got to realise that there is a sense of, he's got to do what he feels is right, and whether if that involves him going somewhere and getting a ton more money than what he's getting here, then chapeau to him, as I say. But I don't think we should dwell too much about whether or not he's just moved for money, because I think it's a very easy argument to make. And sure, there will be an element of that in this move, but I think now is just the time not to name things, point fingers and all that. It's just to move on. So that's my point on what Finn said.
To play devil's advocate and coincidentally say something that I also believe, I obviously see where you're coming from, and contempt for Stoke City aside, they are a bigger club than us, certainly in terms of history, and they do have more resources. There's no question about that. They have more resources than us, but it's not quite as simple as that, though, is it? Number one, we're all saying, if we were offered a job, in Glasgow or whatever, we'd go and take it. Well, sure, but also he was on a lot more money than all of us are to start with. He's extremely well remunerated by the standards of society, right? So I don't think you can just say money is a factor, but it's also not like he has to go there for some kind of job security, or to feed his kids or whatever. The guy's very well remunerated profession anyway. So I think there's that for starters, which is by the way not me saying that is the only reason he has gone, but I think it's that analogy of saying we'd all do the same is a bit different. Also, if I worked in a shop, I wouldn't have 20,000 customers coming in saying, "Where the hell have you gone?" I think I'm not. I think we can become cynical about this and say it doesn't matter at all, but clearly it does matter. Managers don't have a right to bang on about how great the fans are and their relationship with the fans, and then just sort of throw that out the window and say, actually, it's all about cold, hard cash and, resources and all the rest of it. Like, I think you have to be accountable then when you do things that are going to upset those fans. And, I don't think everyone should just be completely sanguine about the fact that he's walked out. People feel aggrieved by it, and they're right to, in my opinion. The final point is that, as I said earlier, Stoke are on a downward spiral. And like, just because he wanted to go and get a better job, maybe at a club with more resources or a bigger club, those opportunities were going to come his way. And it feels like he's jumped into one that is just inexplicable. And I think that is what a lot of our fans are reacting to, right? Like, they're reacting. He hasn't left us for Sunderland, even which even then, I think there would be some right to be aggrieved about that. He's not left us for Everton, which I think is the one where he's very clearly been angling for that job very publicly from day one. No one, I think, here, if Everton had come in for him, would be really begrudging it, as sad as we'd be. It feels like he's gone to a club that are a sideways, if not a downward move in terms of the kind of general trajectory of things. And sure, they have more money, but money isn't everything in football. It isn't. Like Luton Town are in the Premier League right now. They don't have as much money as many, many, many clubs in the Championship, but they're well run and they got there. And we are very well run, and I honestly believe we can get there. And I think to be, the most charitable explanation I can come up with is not that it's money, like in terms of personal wages. It's that he thinks he can finally be the man to wake up the sleeping giant. And in some ways, like, you've got to respect the risk taking and backing yourself. But as I said earlier, you've also got to look at the succession, the parade of young managers who have gone in there and failed. And you have to then look at that and say, well, why have they all failed? It's not because they're bad managers. Shuey is obviously a very good manager. We know that. But the risk, I think, to him here, that this just like hugely blows up in his face in 6 months when he doesn't meet the expectations that, of their fans, is absolutely huge. Because I don't think he's going to get as good a job as he has here. If Stoke fire him in sort of Nathan Jones-esque circumstances. Jones personally, after getting fired by Stoke, got a bit lucky because the Luton job came back available and he was welcomed back and obviously kind of made his reputation all over again. But football is a very snakes and ladders business. Stability is very rare. He had it here. He is not going to have it at Stoke. He is not going to have fans who are willing to travel the length of the country and lose every week, which is pretty much what we've been doing, and still, singing, red and white Barmy Army for the last 20 minutes of games. No, they're going to be booing and calling him, a word I'm not going to say on this live stream, right? Because that's what they did to Alex Neil when they came down here, when they came down to Plymouth the other week. I think he's in for a very, very rude awakening if things don't go not just well, but like probably better than what a reasonable expectation of well would be, given the expectations there. Yeah, it's a huge risk. It's a huge risk, and I just don't really understand why he's taking it personally.
I think I said this in the group chat, didn't I, John? Sorry, Finn. That if he was to go to, if he was to stay at Argyle now, and we would go no win in 15. Yes, all right, we'd be disappointed, and the pressure would be on at the bottom of the table. But Hallett has made it very public, every opportunity he gets, that Shuey's a young manager. He'll make mistakes. He'll put his arm around him. Give him a boost of confidence. You're my man. You're taking us forward. If he goes to Stoke now and has no win in his first 15 games, and they continue on the trajectory that they're on now, he's not going to have John Coates put an arm around him and tell him, you're my man, you're young, you'll make mistakes. There's going to be pressure on. And as you say, there's going to be a lot of resentment from the Sands because of the 6 years of turmoil that Stoke have been through. Yeah, as you say, there's been a conveyor belt of managers with better CVs than Steven Schumacher that have gone into that building and have not been able to turn it around. They've not been able to awake the sleeping giant, and they've not been able to change the course that they're on. Now, Shuey obviously has full belief in his own ability that he is going to be the man to do it. And, fair enough. I admire his confidence. I admire his confidence in himself. Whether or not it works out, only time will tell. But you're right. The job security he had here, I would wager a significant sum of money that he's not going to have a similar amount of job security at Stoke City.
No.
Yes, I would 100% agree with what both of you guys have just said. After saying that positive bit on Steven Schumacher, I understand the wages bit, and from the football side of it, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make. This can be clipped up as much as it, but it genuinely doesn't. Like, people have said yes, it's a life-changing amount of money. Well, it might be, but say that he kept this up this season, which I genuinely believe he would had he stayed. And if we make the right appointment, I think we will stay up anyway. But yeah, if he would have kept us up this season, is what I fully believe. If he did that, no offense to Stoke City, I believe he would have got a job higher up in the Championship, a job offer higher up in the Championship.
This is
in the
you
summer.
causing offence to Stoke City, yeah?
Well, yeah, sorry, but I mean, just I just don't really. I think. Look, we were under no illusions he was going to leave pretty soon if he carried on the trajectory that he was going to. But I feel like what you said is completely apt in that he is kind of under no pressure, or he was under no pressure when he was at Argyle. He can make mistakes and learn from them. He's not going to have that time. So, like, he's one of the most talented managers, in my opinion, in the country at the minute. But so he obviously firmly believes he can turn Stoke around, but it just seems a bit bizarre to me that it's in the middle of the season. Like, is he that desperate to leave? I believe that if he carried on this season and kept us up, when people look at the budget we've got and whatever, he's going to get a better job offer than Stoke City in the summer. In my opinion, Sunderland is a better job offer than Stoke City. Hence why it was so baffling to me when Alex Neil left Sunderland for Stoke City. But there you go. It's obvious that they offer life-changing wages, and you also can't begrudge that. So it's like you can look at it.
I can understand Neil to Stoke a little bit more because Sunderland need a head coach, and Neil likes to be in charge of things, and that's that's what he was sold at Stoke. So I can sort of understand that, but like. Shuey wasn't in charge of things here, really. Let's be honest. Obviously, Dewsnip's got, his stamp on things, and he's staying anyway. So it makes me in my eyes. I think this one's worse than Lowe to take because I think we all knew that Lowe was going to be off in his first opportunity, and that's fine. For me, I think it's some of the things that Shuey's come out and said, and you genuinely feel like an idiot for believing that he wanted to be here and really
the timing doesn't make sense, does it? The
No.
timing of it all, I know the timing makes sense because Stoke have a vacancy in their managerial position. That's the obvious thing to say. But the timing of him seeing this as his moment to move on, as you say, 2 weeks ago he said, "I'm in the best place to learn. It's a brilliant place." Whatever it was he said, I can't remember it word for word. The timing just doesn't sit right.
No,
but
it's not,
as I say, only he will know why this is the right opportunity for him.
It's not the timing of somebody who genuinely loves Plymouth and loves the club, like he has said in the past. Like if you love the club that much, you would have more courtesy for your employers, I would say, at least, and leave, give them a bit more notice. I mean, we're literally just going into the busiest period of the year in terms of football, where the most points are available. Just before a January transfer window. Like, luckily we haven't lost Dewsnip and lots of other people, and I'm sure will come on to that in a bit. So the plan will still be there, but it just throws everything up in the air a bit. So yeah, I think we have been a little, for all of the good stuff that Shuey has done, and I don't feel as bitter as when Lowe left. I'm not particularly pleased with the way that this has transpired.
I think also I'm sure Stoke fans are and will say this, that they're a bigger club, got a bigger stadium, bigger academy, more resources, as we've discussed, yada yada. There are loads of other factors that make for good employment and fulfilling life in this country. Making noise.
There you go. I muted Joe, so it must have been him. Go on.
Anyway, sorry. Lots of things that make for fulfilling employment in this world that are not, just things that are objectively the things you would want in a job, right? There's intangibles as well, and I think more than anything, just quickly, this man has no idea what it's like to manage in a situation where he is not totally revered, right? It wasn't like he came in here with kind of a blank slate and people don't really know who this guy is. And I'm sure that was some fans' reaction who maybe pay less attention. But, it was, he was coming in, A, having been part of a promotion-winning backroom staff, but B, in a situation where he was the legend because Lowe walked out and he was the one who stayed loyal, right? He couldn't, as the chant goes, Preston came a calling, right? And he could have gone, and he didn't. So he's been revered for that, from the beginning, and then obviously for what he achieved. I've seen Stoke fans on Twitter, and obviously that's not necessarily a great representative sample of anything these days or whatever, but who are saying, I don't know who this guy is. This is a terrible appointment. We want someone like Steve Cooper, as if he would go there at this moment in time. But people who are not happy with the appointment, he's going to have it all to prove, and very, very quickly. And I think it's going to be a rude awakening for him. I think even if he kind of expects that on a kind of intellectual level, like he knows it's going to be a tough challenge, I think actually experiencing that is going to be a very, very big transition from what he's got here.
Yeah, Jack says, has anybody got Derek Adams' number? I think he's got the wrong podcast there. I think that's another output. They might have it. They might have it. Yeah, I mean, obviously let's moving on then. Obviously, every manager backs themselves, right? And is there? Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, come on, Aaron, sort it out.
Yeah, I know, it's bad. It's bad. Obviously, 5 years since Stoke dropped from the Premier League, and they've ploughed through 4 managers since. Gary Rowett, Michael O'Neill, Nathan Jones, and Alex Neil. Obviously, I suppose we've sort of covered this, John, but like every manager backs themselves, right? But surely there's like. Do you see him in any way being able to actually turn Stoke around, or is it just pure fallacy?
I mean, he might. Of course, he might. It's not impossible. But I think these things are. I would be thinking about this if it were me in his shoes as a percentage game, and I would look at those managers who have gone in, and it's not just 2 of those, very good experienced managers who have failed there. It's not even just 3 of them. It's all of them. There's 100% failure record, basically. Certainly in terms of what the overall objective is, which is to get them up. Obviously, they've had better and worse seasons within that time, but things have gone really downhill lately. And I would look at that and think, well, why is that? And maybe he's raised that in his interview with Coates, and Coates has said, oh, we brought in this sporting director or whatever, and sort of, that there are tangible things that we're doing. Maybe Shuey has heard those assurances that obviously we're not in a position to be able to hear, and that's convinced him. Maybe he genuinely thinks he'll be given time. Maybe that's an assurance he feels he's got. But it just feels a bit naive to me if that's the case. Otherwise, it feels titanically arrogant to think you would be the one who would succeed where those others have failed, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't necessarily mean that in a sort of negative way. Football managers have to back themselves. And I think he's obviously, the evidence so far with us suggests that he is an outstanding young managerial talent who has hugely outperformed expectations. He could absolutely do it again, but I think it's going to be much, much harder, than taking a club that was already on a kind of upward trajectory, generally speaking, and is well run and has a plan, and where he can kind of slot in and sort of, elevate that to the next level. That's going to be a lot harder than, I think going in and having to pick up the pieces. Because, by the way, they could go down at the moment. It's not, they are not safe by any means. They have not been very good so far this season. They're below us in the table, and we're certainly, a team that absolutely everyone would be saying is still a team that could go down. Wednesday and QPR have picked up recently. It's a wide open relegation race. They are very much in it. He's not going into a situation where, he's left us in the summer and it's suddenly next year, and, he's got a whole summer to build a squad and have a blank slate. I think that this job would be hard enough if that was the case because of the expectation. But he's got to go in and effectively kind of, we're probably not in firefighter territory yet, right, with them, because it's so early in the season. But he's got to steer them away first before he can then build on that. And I think that's going to be a real challenge. And I think it's a challenge he's not really had to confront before in his short managerial career, right? We've not, since he took over, we've not been in any relegation battles this season. Again, I don't think it really can be said to be in a battle in the sense that it's like we've been in the kind of QPR Wednesday situation where we're now desperately trying to claw our way back. We've been, sort of consistently picking up points. We've not really been streaky this season. It's been about where you'd expect us to be, according to probably the good end of those expectations so far. He's now got to go in and effectively do a job that's very different to that, with a very different vibe and very different circumstances. And I think it's going to be very difficult. And, again, me saying that I don't think he'll, but the likelihood is he probably won't do very well there is not me doubting his ability as a manager. It's me saying that if you look at the other managers who've gone there, who I also like, they haven't done well either. So I don't think he is so generationally good that he is better than some of those other names that have gone in, or at least at this stage of his managerial career that we can be. So I guess that's where I kind of sell on that.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree, like with what you're saying there. So, and sort of touching on what I've already said, it's like I would much more understand his decision had he made this in the summer, because if it's a reset season, Stoke have stayed up, say, and then he's got a new budget. He can come in fresh in the summer, ideas. He's kept Argyle up, right? Perfect scenario. He's kept this up. Stoke stay up as well, and then he can go there and plan. He's now actually entered a job where the team is currently below the club he's just left. Yes, by 3 points, but we literally beat them in the league about 2 weeks ago, and they weren't very good. And now he's put us in jeopardy, really, because we are going into a very busy period in the season and about to embark on a I would say pretty crucial January transfer window in terms of our 5-year plan that we've just set out. And he's decided to leave us. So once again, that's why it's left a bit of taste in my mouth. That speaks to me as somebody who's actually been looking, or at least decided for a while, that the first bit of money that's thrown at him, he's going to take. Which you can't begrudge him the money, but of all of the comments that he's made about Plymouth Argyle have before this point have suggested the opposite of that. So it's really quite confusing to me, to be honest.
I can't really remember because it's in the mists of time, but like I'm pretty sure Leicester did not expect to go down to League One, and people did not expect Leicester to go down to League One when Holloway took over there, which was about this probably earlier in the season than we are now, right? I think it was November kind of time. He took over there well with enough time and enough kind of credit and recent success to steer them well clear of relegation, and they went down. And they are a bigger club than Stoke. I think it's very fair to say it can happen. This can absolutely happen. That there is no guarantee that they are. That, somehow we're more likely to go down them at this stage of the season. I just do not see that at all. Because money is not absolutely everything in success on the pitch, as we have seen time and time again. Huge risk.
Moving on to some of the questions that jumping ahead slightly before we talk about Saturday and Nancekivell's and Dewsnip's revolution. Starting with PAFC displays. Obviously, we've already mentioned it. Joe's already mentioned there's going to be they're looking to do something in terms of a display to back Nancekivell on Saturday. He's going to need Home Park rocking. Anybody that can be free. They are meeting at Home Park tomorrow evening at the Devonport end at 5 o'clock. Come and join us and help get Home Park ready. Nick's asked, gents, what does this do for our transfer business? Some players may have been lined up to play for Shuey. Now that he's left, they may not wish to sign. Is there any issue there, Joe, in the fact that I appreciate the Stokes targets are going to be different to ours, but is there any problem in which he takes that list with him?
I would say not. Without trying to pick up on the way the question's worded, the players would be coming to play for Argyle. They wouldn't be coming to play for Schumacher. The way we play is the inverted commas, the Argyle way. Yes, Shuey's had a hand in setting that up, but it's pretty clear from Argyle's statement this evening that we're not going to abandon that principle. That is how we're going to go forward, and whoever the new man coming in is will have to buy into that and fully immerse themselves into it. So in terms of player targets, I would accept that one or two may well have had conversations for Shuey and thought, I want to play for him, and maybe this might put the spanner in the works. But as far as we can tell from the initial fallout of tonight's news, the director of football is staying, the head of recruitment is staying, and the head of football data is staying. So the three key integral members of our recruitment team are still in place. And that is vitally important, as we mentioned, with the transfer window less than 2 weeks away from starting. So Whilst it will be a bit of a blow to maybe one or two possible targets, I don't see it as a major issue moving into the month. Obviously, time will tell, and a new man will come in and want his own players to fit our system. But I'm not overly concerned at this stage about our transfer window. I might be come 3 weeks in if we've still only got Ben Waine up front while Hardy's face stops swelling up and Bundu's legs not being restitched. But that's obviously the key area with a commanding centre half that we probably need to look at. But the January transfer window is an important thing. And no, John, I'm not from Joe Bell Bathrooms and Kitchens, who sponsors every goal scorer, it seems. Although I do like to take the credit when it's announced across the stadium. Going back to the original question, no, I don't think it will hamper our transfer dealings too much, because the three main members of that department are still in situ, and that was vitally important from this decision.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Joe said there. I think I'm not comparing us to Brighton in terms of where they are as a football club at the moment. Well, yeah, but they're the kind of team I look at in terms of a team that has built a footballing identity, and like from Potter to like De Zerbi, like it hasn't really changed. And I feel like whatever coach is gonna come in for us, we're looking for a coach who is going to fit that identity. Now, I don't know if we'll come on to this in a bit. I personally don't think Leighton Baines is the right choice right now for the.
Don't give it away yet, Finn, for Christ's sake.
Sorry.
But
people are going to turn off now. They already know the ending of the film. Bloody hell.
Well, that was poor. Poor for me. But I think we, in all seriousness, we need to look at somebody, if we can, who I don't know who that is. I mean, it's not my job to do that, but look at somebody who does have experience at championship level. But it's also, I think I saw a comment in here that said, "Oh, not a fossil." I don't know if I'd put it like that, but somebody that is, if I wouldn't have been against Neil Warnock for 6 months, but if it's not, clearly the statement basically says, like you said, Joe, we're not going to deviate away from the way that we're already running things, then we need to look for someone with a bit of experience, I think.
I mean,
Gary Lineker's a top end.
Yeah, we're not talking about replacements just yet. I mean, we can move on to that, I suppose. But like, I just don't see, and I know that you agree with me, John, because I'm basically going to read what you put in the group chat and the fact that you said about, Warnock is a pragmatist. He's going to look at what we do well, and he won't like reshuffle the pack if, too much. He might make us a bit more solid defensively, but I don't see us losing that like direct style of counter-attacking football that we have under Warnock. So I'm not against that. Going back to the statement quickly, then Joe, Hallett has commented saying that we are naturally sorry to lose a manager of Stephen's potential, but he has decided to take a new role that he sees as the next step in his career. The work is already underway to find a suitable replacement to lead this great football club forward. We have made great strides over the last few years in ensuring that we have an organisation, a football philosophy that can withstand a change in personnel. The result has been a style of football that I and all fans have enjoyed watching, and which will continue. Obviously, it would have helped if I searched it before. Joe, I can imagine you've got the current betting odds on our.
Are you trying to say I've got a gambling problem, Aaron, or something?
No, just you're the man in the know about these things.
Yeah, I mean the point from Uncle Simon's statement is that the process is already underway, which does sort of potentially. I mean, I know they could say the process is underway and they could only be up there now with a Pizza Hut delivery, writing a load of names down on an A4 pad. But similar to succession planning when it comes to big corporations and things, there's always a dossier somewhere, regardless of how long your manager's going to stay in place. There's always a document somewhere that will have a list of names that gets constantly updated. And they will obviously check that on a regular basis.
That's just Football Manager, isn't it? That's all I
It
heard
is,
Jimmy
yeah.
does
I
anyway.
mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all Jimmy and Ross do in their office is just play Football Manager and look for who's good on their current saves. No, I'm not discrediting their work. They do a fantastic job. But look, they'll know. And the likelihood is that the name that they've got at the top of their list with highlighted and got circles around it is probably not even on BetVictor's current betting market. Because that was what it was with Ryan Lowe. I remember when Lowe was coming in after Adams, it was only until 48 hours before Lowe came in that Alan Nixon broke the story that anyone had even considered Ryan Lowe. I don't think anyone even thought it would happen when we first heard it, when he first appeared in the betting all those years ago. So don't be, whilst I accept that Leighton Baines is currently, or last time I looked, he was the very short priced favourite.
Yes,
You've got to remember this market was only formed late last night. And it could take £2.50 for somebody's price to suddenly tumble. It's so early in the market that it's not going to take a huge amount of money on a certain name for it to come in. So I wouldn't get carried away just yet. I think I said this earlier today on one of the interviews I gave, that it's important that they get the right man here. It has to be the right man, not just to keep us in the Championship, but to take us to the next level. We could go out and find a man who's going to keep us in 21st place every year. That's probably easily done. But we need to find a man who's going to have us as a minimum of 21st place this year. For what it's worth, I think we'll be considerably higher than 21st place this year. But then we need a man who's going to take us higher up the league next year and then higher up the year after. Similar to what they did with Ryan, similar to what they did with Stephen. They managed to take it, that year-on-year progression.
You mean
so
get us up?
find...
You mean get us up a bit next year? Piss off to Hull. Somebody come in, get us a bit further next
and then
year.
Go to Blackburn, and then
Yeah.
the year after that they can go to Blackpool or something and what have you. But
Nice.
yeah, I mean that's what it is. It has to be the right man, but equally, it also has to be a smooth but quick appointment. I don't think this can be a recruitment process that drags on and on and on. For the reasons already highlighted, we got 3 games coming up in next to no time at all. We've got an important FA Cup game that, whilst on paper looks incredibly winnable, strange things happen in cup games. Strange things happen when Sutton United play an FA Cup game. And all of a sudden, we may well have a target on our back with what's happened this afternoon. And then there's January is if one of West Brom or us gets through in the FA Cup, January is just Huddersfield and Cardiff. They're 2 massive games in the context of our season before we go into another tough run of games after that. So it has to be the right man. I have full faith in the team up there that they are going to get the right man. It's going to be data driven. I think Simon talked, didn't he, when Ryan came in, that there was a 15-point metric or something that they scored the managers against, who they interviewed, and Ryan was the outstanding candidate. It will be something similar here. There will be a checklist that every manager will have to go through that they interview. And whoever comes out highest on the scores will get the job. And I will fully back them. Maybe 1 or 2 through gritted teeth if the names on the betting list at the moment are to be believed. But they will have my full support because I fully.
Genuine question.
I think it's been 20 odd years in a row now that Steve Cottrell's been the favourite at certain points to become Argyle manager. Bless him. I like Steve. Good work, like manager.
As Jack said in the chat, 18 plus, gamble aware.
Yeah.
The fun stop. Like genuinely, do not bet on managerial fucking positions.
Don't do it.
Lose your money. It's pointless. It's never the right one. Let's be honest. And by the time it's the right one, the odds are far too short for you to actually even make any money anyway. But enough about that. Currently with BetVictor, Leighton Baines is 4 to 6 on. I believe I've said that the right way around. I stick a pound on an acca every now and then. Steve Cottrell, who departed Shrewsbury last, 5-1. Nathan Jones 6-1. Michael Duff 8-1. John Eustace, Nigel Pearson, Neil Warnock all sit a bit lower. Alex Neils 20-1. Gary Rowett, Tony Mowbray, Carl Robinson, Sean Maloney, no thank you. Paul Hackingbottom 25-1. Scott Brown, that would definitely go with the no dickhead rule. Ruben Sellers is on this list for some reason. Steve Bruce, now that's what we'd like to see. Steve Bruce in. On that, moving on to the managers then. Kuzner asks, who would you appoint right now? I think if it was me, yeah, I mean, Machinio, or however you pronounce it, would be lovely, mainly just to annoy Portsmouth fans more. But I think I'd like Lee Carsley. I think that would fit the role of knows Dewsnip quite well. Attacking football, good with young talent. Well, you have to be if you manage the under 18s or the under 23s, don't you? Don't really get a chance for senior pros. And I think he would fit the left field appointment, and also somebody that we would like to give time in the role. And I feel like he might appreciate that time a little bit more than some others. But you know, it's all hearsay, isn't it? Who would you go for, John?
First, I'd be very surprised if Carsley left his job as he's England under 21 manager now, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
I do not think he's leaving that job to manage us. And just quickly on the betting odds before I answer the question, I think it goes to show like how stupid these odds are at this stage, given that Baines is very clearly being linked because of an Everton connection with Dewsnip, and Cottrell is being linked because quite literally just because he has a West Country accent, right? They cannot possibly.
And it's every time the job comes up, Steve Cottrell is favourite.
Yeah, and I remember like actually wanting Cottrell back in like 2008 when that would have been a good appointment, but like, come on. Like, it's not, it's just, I struggle to think of anyone less likely, honestly, like just from a footballing point of view at this moment in time to get the job. So yeah, with the huge caveat that like Joe is probably right. This is going to be some random name where we're like either who or like, oh them, that's interesting. And with the second caveat that like Joe, I also have total faith in the backroom staff who are still there and Hallett and Dewsnip to get this right. And they know obviously a huge amount more than me about these things and would make a much better appointment than I would if I was left to my own devices. But my answer to the question belatedly is Tony Mowbray would be my number one choice. I think
just doesn't come south of Birmingham.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen. I have question marks as to whether we can afford him or if he'd want to come here. I think he could probably do better than us, but I think that obviously he has a dual dividend, Mowbray, in our current circumstances, which is he is a battle-hardened championship manager who has been around the block, knows how to keep teams up and do much better than that, knows the level incredibly well, has good contacts with the January transfer window coming up. But I think he's also someone who, while kind of personally quite dour, actually plays very good football. I mean, his Sunderland team basically played the same way that we do, which is extremely attacking style with tricky wingers and kind of little attacking movement in behind the striker. We all saw that when they came down to Home Park the other week. And obviously, the big issue they had was a lack of cutting edge up front. But I don't think that's necessarily Mowbray's fault. Obviously, had to sell Ross Stewart on deadline day. Clearly, didn't get an opportunity to replace him properly. I think with Hardy and Bundu eventually, and then presumably a striker coming in January, he would have more potency up front. Obviously, he's a manager who came in at Sunderland last year after Neil went to Stoke, and the fans weren't particularly keen on him, and he got them to the playoffs, which was a little bit fluky because I think it was a lower points total than you would normally need to finish sixth. But I mean, even being in that conversation for a manager coming in partway through the season to a club that only just come up from League One is a phenomenal achievement. So that's kind of his short-term record, and I think obviously longer term, we all know he's been around the block and done a lot of really, really good things. Strikes me as a very decent guy who obviously knows the game inside out. And so, yeah, I just think, in terms of both, the Argyle way, so to speak, on the pitch, but also just having that bit of experience, it would seem like a low-risk appointment and also potentially an incredibly exciting one. Again, I would be surprised if we were able to pull that off, but if we could, he would be absolutely my first choice of those who are available.
Yeah, Joe, before you jump in, obviously Richard Sloman says, would Nathan Jones fit the no D-head rule. Don't know what that short's for. Surely he would be the man to go for success in this league on a limited budget. I know if Richard had asked that question first, I'd have asked that to John, because I know Sam would be head over heels with Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I mean, he probably wouldn't. I mean, look, I'm not going to say it. Nathan Jones is a brash personality. He's very abrasive. He will clash with people wherever he goes. At Luton, he had success, and that was his gift. It worked well for him. On terms of the other two names that he mentions, I'm sort of a little bit more ambivalent towards John Eustace than a lot of people. Only because I read a few things from Birmingham fans just about the way that Birmingham were playing towards the end of his time there. And actually, when he first went in, there wasn't an overall manager bounce. Don't get me wrong, the start of the season Birmingham had was outstanding. Get yourself off the screen. Stop playing up to the viewers. In terms of Gary Rowett, I wouldn't. Again, I'm quite ambivalent towards that. I thought he did a really good job at Millwall for the majority of the time he was there. I accept that this season it sort of wasn't going his way, but that happens in managers' careers. In terms of who I would want, there are two names really. There's one from a sort of romantic side of it. I sort of see it would be written in the stars. 6-month contract. He has absolutely no control over transfers or anything, and he's told that on May, regardless of what happens, he's walking out the door. But there's the romantic in me that would love to see Neil walk off into retirement after keeping Argyle up. And there are some real points that would see this work in the fact that he has seen us play a lot in the last 18 months when he's not been employed by somebody else. He has an unbelievable record of pulling a club together in a tricky patch, galvanizing them and keeping them in this division. He is only half an hour over the bridge or wherever he is nowadays. There is a lot of reasons why Warnock would work. There are several reasons why it wouldn't work. Similar to Jones, he has a personality that would clash with several people, and it would sort of go away from the young mantra that we have. And would he? I know he's famous for his style of football. I think he's wise enough to know not to come in and completely turn the place upside down. As I say, he's watched every home game since he's left Huddersfield. He sees how we play. He sees our strengths. He would know not to try and change it all around quickly. But my choice actually would be, and this is a man I have an immense amount of respect for, and I know that a lot of people probably aren't going to agree with me, would actually be Michael Duff. I know that Swansea didn't work out as planned, but I think for a lot of people, the writing was on the wall even before he went in there. It was a very strange appointment by Swansea where they were going. But
I can also
the job...
just quickly say on the theme of disrespect for other clubs that we've been going on, their fans treated him absolutely disgustingly.
Yeah, they did. They did. Yeah, totally agree with that. And I mean, he didn't help himself losing the derby, and it was the first derby they'd lost for God knows how long. I accept all of that, and that played against him, but he did an unbelievable job at Cheltenham. I think it's only now that it's really being appreciated, just the work he was doing at Cheltenham. And that season at Barnsley last year, it was one season that he went in there. That club was all over the place. It was a basket case of a club when he went in there. And they came down here on the opening day. They got beat 1-0. And very quickly, he turned that place around. And he had them finishing like a train in the second half of the season. They were always the team I was most worried about in pipping us to an automatic promotion spot last year. It was never Sheffield Wednesday, because I always thought there was something about Wednesday where it would all go tits up a little bit. I was always fearful of Barnsley. We went there in March, and I know if Hardy takes his chance at the start of the second half, it could be a different game. They swatted us to one side in that second half in March. I really like the way he sets his teams up. And if you put a line through that few months at Swansea, Michael Duff is a really attractive proposition. I think he would buy into everything that we do as a football club. I think he would certainly buy into the way we operate with the data-driven, the way we do our transfer policy, whether or not Morgan Whittaker would necessarily agree with it. But I don't necessarily think it was Michael Duff was the reason that Morgan Whittaker left Swansea. I think he's quite open about the fact that he had the utmost respect for Michael Duff. It was just the fact he couldn't stay there. For his sake, for his partner's sake, for the good of him, he had to get out of that building. And obviously he's come to Home Park. So I think that wouldn't be a problem. He knows what Home Park is like. He knows how difficult a place it is to come here to get a result. He knows what our support is like as well. I think, if I remember rightly, he actually made a comment about it in March when we went up there, because that was the snow weekend, wasn't it, where everyone was advised not to leave your homes, and yet we still took nearly 1,000 what it was to North Yorkshire. So Michael Duff would be at the forefront of my mind, just because I think it would fit with every mantra we need. But if it's going to be somebody left field like it probably is going to be, then I'm all for it anyway. But Duff with my head, but there'd be some sheer comedy about Warnock coming in and just shithousing the next 24 league games and keeping us in the division.
Also, I don't know if this is still the case, because I feel like it's been a while since I read this, but I think Duff is actually still based in Cheltenham. I know that at least for a time last season he did not move to Barnsley because his kids were in school and they were settled. I think he was open about that in the media, that he was commuting from Cheltenham to Yorkshire, which basically, like, if one of the huge problems that we've always experienced is managers and players not wanting to come down here because it's so far from where they're from in the north, kind of makes a refreshing change. He's a manager who won't leave the southwest and is commuting up north rather than vice versa. So yeah, just on the kind of cultural stakes, not that it's necessarily the most important thing, but I do actually think Duff has, at the very least, obviously a recent home base in roughly this part of the world, if not still does. So yeah, that maybe
they were incredibly unlucky, or he can count himself incredibly unlucky that he is not playing managing in the Championship this year with Barnsley, because of the way they got to the final and how they played in that final. They were incredibly unlucky. It was criminal that Sheffield Wednesday went on to win that game. So I really do think, and to be honest with you, the thought only cropped into my head today. I've been very much pinning me flag to the mast about the whole Warnock romantic survival waltz off into retirement frame of mind. But the more and more I think about it, the more and more it screams Michael Duff to me.
Yeah, at least as well, Michael Duff will only really leave us for Bristol City? Is that closer to home if he lives in Cheltenham? So, and to be honest,
club legend at Burnley, isn't he? If Vincent Kompany walks out,
yeah, I suppose. Casey Bishop says that he's very concerned about our preparation on Saturday. Oh, sorry, Finn. Who would you appoint?
I mean, I think you've already heard that. I would say not Leighton Baines right now. I don't really know. I think I would be for Warnock.
Just for context, apparently Leighton Baines has Everton's under-18s bottom of the league. So
yeah.
So the problem with that, very quickly, sorry, Finn, just to quickly jump in on that point. The problem with that is judging somebody on their under-18 season is very tricky to do because you don't know the players that he has at his disposal. We all know how academies work. One year you could have 6 or 7 wonder kids and you could dominate the league and win every game you play. The next year you might not have that. It might not be the best crop and you might struggle. So it might just be the conveyor belt that Everton are on, but it's certainly a worrying stat. Sorry, Finn, I'll stop jumping in over you every time you try to speak now.
It's all right. I think for more with Baines it's more like it'd just be a bit too much of a risk for the position we are on that right now. We're in quite a delicate position in the Championship. I think we have the capacity to stay up, but we are no means out of trouble. So I don't know about Messinho because again it's one season, but that would be a sort of statement intent if we could do that. Now that Joe has talked about Michael Duff, I think it's making more sense. But to be honest with you, 48 hours ago, I had no idea that Steven Schumacher was going to leave Plymouth Argyle anytime soon, especially when you consider the the comments he made last week, where I thought, okay, he's batted off the Sunderland rumours and he'll go at the end of the season or something. So I'm still kind of analysing really who I'd like. But if you ask me right now, because I don't really see any candidates out there that really take my eye, I would have said Warnock for 6 months and then have a look who we can do in the season. But I appreciate having a look at that statement. That's probably not going to be the case.
Disperta, I'm going to guess that this isn't your real name, but Disperta Parabellum says Steve Cooper been mentioned. It's not going to happen, is it? That's just lunacy.
He's been mentioned in South London around Selhurst Park, I would imagine, which is probably a more likely destination than Home Park.
Yeah, well, we'll take Roy Hodgson then. Why are you not talking about Nigel Pearson? Ticks a lot of boxes.
I mean, he does. He does in the same respect that Warnock probably does. But again, similar to Warnock, there's similar characteristics that might hold him back. He's a personality that clashes with people. He's probably not trying to be ageist in how we're going to approach our manager recruitment process, but he's probably not of the right age demographic. And I respect Nigel Pearson. I think he's had a very good career, but I'm not sure that we would be the right step for him if he wants to get back into management.
I would take Nigel Pearson for 6 months in the same way that I would take Neil Warnock for 6 months, because I believe Nigel Pearson has a property around Ivy Bridge or somewhere like that. So, I mean, he's got a very good, record in the Championship. But yeah, the long term, I don't think. And by the looks of the statement, we're not going to deviate much away from what we're already doing. But I think an appointment like Nigel Pearson long term would cause more friction than it's worth, probably, for the board.
Having a good friend who's a Bristol City fan and having been around, been to a few away games with him, been just sort of generally around fans of that club during the Pearson era, he was both very, very well liked by the fans and clearly had a good rapport with them. And I think, was basically saying we're going to stay around in the pubs of Bristol after he was sacked or walked out or whatever. And I'm going to sort of talk to people, and that's great. Also, though, to me, it just seemed very stagnant around there. It didn't seem like there was a lot of excitement. It didn't seem like there was a lot of optimism. Some weeks they play well and win. Other weeks they would play really, really badly and lose. They were fairly streaky. And obviously, would we take that and finish 13th this season? Yes, of course. Obviously, it's a different challenge with us, to with a club that have a much bigger budget and have been established at this level for quite a number of years now, and also had, during that time, players like Antoine Semenyo and Alex Scott, who have now gone off to the Premier League. I think Semenyo is actually regularly starting for Bournemouth now in the Premier League. So, incredibly exciting young talent. I'm not saying we don't have players like, who could be that good, but probably not at that stage right now. So I think there'd be less to kind of fall back on. And yeah, I don't know. I feel we need an appointment to sort of, like, as Joe said, galvanize people, energize the place. Ultimately, this appointment is going to make us feel like we are being written off once again as a small club. And the irony of it is everything that Shuey said in the dressing room after we got promoted, his departure sends that message, right? That essentially we've been written off as a project by by someone who clearly has the ambition to lead a project that can get to the Premier League. I think we need an appointment that is going to scream, that is either going to be a huge statement of intent or a very canny appointment from someone who the data suggests can kind of lead that project. And I just don't see Pearson in that sense. It almost felt like at Bristol City, it was just kind of managed decline, right? Never get bad enough to the point where you might actually be in danger of going down, but also finish 17th or 18th every year. At a club that for me has a lot of potential and is itself kind of a sleeping giant, right? It just it just doesn't seem like a good fit for us at this moment in time. And to Finn's point, I actually, and Joe's point, I guess, I do actually see the value of kind of a Warnock appointment for 6 months. This is absolutely, before people start screaming in the comments, this is not me saying I would necessarily do that or be cross if we don't do it, but I see the logic in that. But if you're going to appoint someone, in that capacity to go to the end of the season and kind of be a steward of the project, to then hand it off to someone who might be a bit of a risky appointment now, why would you not give it to Warnock? Why would you go for Nigel Pearson or someone like who doesn't know the club as well? Warnock knows, as Joe said, knows the club very well, both historically and at the moment, because he's been to a lot of games and been in and around Hallett, and is someone who galvanizes teams, and is someone who obviously has an impeccable track record of keeping teams in this league. So it's just, if you are going to go for that, and again, I'm not absolutely saying that this would be my preferred course of action, but if you are going to go for that kind of bridge to next season approach, I really don't see the point of doing it with anyone other than Warnock.
It's also very classic Argyle, isn't it? It's like, oh God, who can we get back? Freo. Where's Freo? Go get Freo.
But I don't necessarily think that way with Warnock, because obviously if we get Warnock into the outside pundit class, it's going to look like we've smashed the oh dear, like we've smashed the break glass in case of relegation box, right? And like it's a terrible negative appointment, and we're just going to play hoofball and try and shithouse 1-0 wins. That was a fair assessment of him going into Huddersfield, and it would have been a fair assessment of him going into Rotherham if he got that job 2 weeks ago, for example. With us, it's not. It's differently coded almost, because he knows the club and the area, and because his job would be different, right? It wouldn't be a firefighting job at this point in time, but it would be a job where we need to ensure that we stay in this league. And as Joe said, I think Aaron Hughes actually said earlier, quoting me from the group chat, I think this idea is this kind of troglodyte long ball merchant is because that is the only way he has been able to get a tune out of certain teams that were in a very, very bad situation, right? He's not going to go into, with actually respect somewhat for the first time tonight, to Huddersfield, with their squad, he was not going to be able to go in there and get them playing scintillating football. It was going to be quite stodgy. And by the way, I thought they actually scored some good goals and had some nice kind of attractive wins when he was there last season, but it was kind of built on a being good at set pieces, if I remember correctly, and being quite solid defensively.
Yeah,
I just finish with the man is a pragmatist first and foremost. He is not going to look at Whittaker and Azaz banging in screamers and say, stop shooting, don't pass the ball to those two and score goals. He's going to say, yeah, go and try and score goals, but enjoy it by being fucking disciplined. Right? There is room in this squad, and I think untapped potential for us to just be a bit tighter at the back, and that actually could be a way, especially away from home, to getting more results, even if it does sacrifice just like 1 to 5 to maybe 10% of the attacking intent. This idea that Warnock would come in and tear everything up, including the stuff that has been working, I just don't think is how he operates. Again, this is not me advocating it per se. Like, I understand why people are leery of an older appointment or an appointment for a limited period of time, but like those would be my objections and questions, not Warnock is a dinosaur, who's going to play bad football. Actually, like, my objection to Pearson would probably be more, maybe not the football part of it, but the sort of dinosaur part of it. But that would be more my objection to him, I guess.
Yeah. Before we move on to the preview pod, then, before we move on to talking about Saturday, because I had to scrap the preview pod. So thanks for that 45 minutes of content that will never see the light of day about Steven Schumacher being good friends with Wayne Rooney. Yeah, class. 45 minutes I'll never get back. Just a quick from Cassian Blackmore, who just says, does this now free up some budget to get Finn Azaz in January? I suppose Stoke could potentially pay more, right?
I hate to be the doom monger on this, but it's more important that we get a manager than sign Finn Azaz permanently, I would think.
I disagree.
Okay, that's fine. Glad football's all about opinions.
Yeah.
Disperter, our mate, again says, also, what about the rest of the staff? Goalkeeper coach, assistant manager, and first team coach are all gone. Where does that leave us? Obviously, in terms of backroom staff, I know we were speaking earlier. I know Ben is a massive fan of Will Still for some reason. Seems to think we can go and get him, and I appreciate his side of the argument. I can't see that one, but does it actually help us in a way that we don't have all the staff there, that we can bring in a manager who could bring in some of their key men or women and build around that? Does that, obviously we've lost this Peter, I can't say his name for the life of me. This Peter
Kavanagh.
Yeah, Kavanagh. He was sort of semi-touted as the next Schumacher, right, in line. But I don't know if that was just Sam talking, but like, a clear out of some of the backroom staff is.
Yeah, just quickly on that note, Aaron, we haven't discussed Justin Cochrane.
Who's that?
Can we not discuss Justin Cochrane? Because
Oh,
It's just no. Let's move on.
Look,
No.
Sam spent a lot of time. Sam spends at least 5 minutes googling who is first team coach at Brentford earlier this year. Aaron,
right.
this
Brilliant.
week.
Well, okay. Well, we'll give that some credence if his name even makes a list of on that A4 piece of paper that's jotted down in Neil Dewsnip's iPhone notes or whatever. Sorry, where was I going? Does it clear out slightly, Joe or Finn? Does that help us in our recruitment? Does that give us a platform that we to hire somebody that previously wouldn't, that can bring some of their staff in?
I think the key here is, we've lost Stephen Schumacher. This is what this is all about. But we kept the core of our sort of football. So I don't actually. I was going to say this, but I don't know how to not sound. This is not derogatory to Neil Dewsnip, but Neil Dewsnip has spent the last 3 or 4 years since he came into the club working with people that he knows very, very, very well. Like, I mean, I believe he talked about how, he used to coach Stephen Schumacher as a youth player at Everton when he was 8 years old. So he's had a connection with people where he's been able to work with them and develop. He's been able to work with them, but also develop them themselves as managers. And I'd be interested to see, like, how much influence he has himself over the appointment. I know he's the director of football, but what I mean by that is whether he looks at a managerial candidate and then looks at their backroom staff and goes, well, I don't actually like their backroom staff, or I might like their backroom staff, so let's bring this manager in. So I think it all kind of depends. I don't know whether it helps us or not really. It kind of I wouldn't be able to definitively answer that question right now because, like I said, 48 hours ago, I didn't even realize this was going to be the situation we'd be in.
Yeah, moving on to Saturday then. Obviously, Casey says that he's I'm very concerned about our preparation on Saturday, John. I suppose we can't really speculate about how it's going to go. Obviously, Dewsnip and Nancekivell are in the Roman Lario and Carl Fletcher role. They might be slightly more experienced than them. How do you see Saturday going now? Obviously, ideally, home park will be absolutely rocking.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not ideal preparation, right? Like your manager and half the backroom staff walking out at the beginning of the week. I'd say a few things to sort of, counter that very obvious fact. Number one, it's happened early in the week. This could have dragged out until Wednesday, Thursday, Friday with contract negotiations or what have you, but it's done. It's public. It's in the past, not emotionally in the moment, but, the actual announcement is in the past. We've got, the best part of a week now to move on. And try and prepare for the game. This has been very obvious. This was happening since yesterday. Obviously, it's now happened. So yeah, so that's 3 good days to get on the training ground and prepare for it. Obviously, Nancekivell has, I believe, taken the team before. It was him who was in charge for the Scunthorpe game, right at the end of which was obviously a much more important game than the Birmingham game in the sense that survival was directly on the line, and we won that game and looked really good. Obviously, it didn't do enough to keep us up, but did what was asked of him in that game. So it's not like a role he's not been thrust into before with high pressure at home park. So he'll know what that feels like. And obviously is someone who loves the club, knows what someone I think said in the comments earlier, knows what the club means to the city and the fans. And I'm sure has the respect of the players as well. So I'm not really worried about it being in his hands from that point of view. But then I think also, it's going to be a game where there's going to be a lot of emotion, really, really hoping that the crowd will kind of, sing like a wounded tiger. It's an odd metaphor, isn't it? But we'll roar like a wounded tiger. Maybe would be more poetic. And I think we will. I think that. Well, I guess there's 2 ways it could go. It could be a kind of nervy atmosphere and despondent. But I'm hoping that people respond to this like those away fans who made the trip to MK Dons for Shuey's first game responded, which is defiance. Kind of defiance and joy, and you're not going to take our club away from us. Even if you kind of spit in our eye or kick us in the balls or whatever. And so we've got an opportunity to create that atmosphere on Saturday, and I really, really hope that we do. And obviously, it's also a game where we're not playing Leicester, we're not playing Ipswich, we're playing a team who have been honking since they made the completely baffling from a football perspective decision to fire their perfectly serviceable young manager who'd overachieved with them to this point, and bring in a failing has-been manager, has-been player who is not going to have a good managerial career. And I don't even care if this gets clipped up particularly, because it's going to be true whether they beat us on Saturday or not. It's already gone toxic there. He's already chewing out the players in public. I believe they've only got points against Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham and Ipswich, bizarrely. But I think that apart from Ipswich, they've literally only taken. I think maybe they won a game the other week actually, but until then they'd only taken points off Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham and literally lost almost every other game. So we're playing them at a good time, which has not been the case for us with many teams this season. We played a lot of teams at bad times, including them actually when we went up to St Andrews. At the beginning of the season when they were really flying high in those very early days. Obviously, that hasn't lasted. So, obviously, it's the Championship. Anyone can beat anyone on their day. Obviously, Rotherham gave us a rollicking good game on Saturday with 10 men after being pretty poor with 11 men on the pitch. So you can never really predict exactly what's going to happen, and certainly wouldn't want to be complacent about it. But it's a huge opportunity to create a bear pit kind of atmosphere, and for the players to to have a platform that to show what they can do, to show that their manager was wrong to leave and wrong to doubt that they were a project worth staying for. Because if I were them, I would be angry as hell right now, and I wouldn't claim to know what any of them are feeling particularly, but or certainly would hope they would empathise with the fans who feel angry as hell, and they've got opportunities to go out there and put things right. Actually, really, not a lot is wrong until Shuey's gone performance-wise, but to continue to climb up the table, continue this kind of good run of form that we're on, and then sort of make a statement. Long way of answering the question, I guess. But while obviously the lack of preparation is not ideal, sometimes that can be compensated for with what this game will mean and kind of other kind of intangible factors like that. So I'm not particularly worried about the effect this might have for Saturday. It's not ideal, but we've got to play the game, and I think there are things that could go in our favour with it as well.
I think John's made a few very good points there, actually, and I know, shock horror. And I'm going to start off with the obvious one, that we all know that the players were in London on Sunday having their Christmas party.
Are they?
So they wouldn't have, apparently so, yeah. So they wouldn't have travelled back until yesterday. So today is the first day of training. And if you watch all the behind the scenes videos of inside Argyle and things like that the club put out, Nancekivell is very hands-on at training anyway. So I don't imagine this is the first day of training week for this game. They wouldn't have done any prep for Birmingham until they came in this morning. By the time they came in, I have absolutely no doubt they will have known. By the time they left London, they may well have known. So in that respect, I'm not overly concerned. On the point of Nance's record against Scunthorpe, I think that's a very important game to raise, because that week, remember how everyone felt leaving Accrington that day. I mean, I remember leaving Accrington that day wondering where the bloody hell we were going as a club. And in the space of that week, he picked everyone up off the floor and he lifted them. And we went out there that day against Scunthorpe and we were outstanding. It was one of our better performances for the second half of the season. It should have been 6 that day, let's be honest. We had every bit of woodwork in the stadium.
Which would have kept us up, right?
It would have, yeah. We went down on goal difference. I think we went down on goal difference.
It gets a bit lost, but if Josh Morris hadn't cheated, then it's quite possible that we'd have kicked on and scored those extra goals, in my opinion. But
exactly. I mean, we were brilliant that day, and he lifted the players, and the atmosphere inside Home Park that day was very similar to what we're going to need on Saturday. I think it was Chris Webb put out a tweet very early this morning when he was saying about the atmosphere that Birmingham are going to face, as if Home Park's not a difficult place to come anyway. In the last few years, and particularly this season, where it really is a tricky place to come to. You throw everything in that's gone on the last 48 hours. I would not want to be an opposing team coming to Home Park on Saturday, is my hope from an Argyle point of view. We have to make it incredibly difficult for them from the start that the players get to the ground. It has to be instilled in them, and I have every faith from Nance that it will be instilled in them. And don't forget Nance, because as Jack says there, he knows the club inside out. He knows the history. It would be a specialist subject on Mastermind if we ever put him up to it. He knows Plymouth Argyle. Forget Nance. Neil Dewsnip will have a standard that he will expect from this group of players. And if they don't hit that standard, he will tell them and he will hold them to that. We know what that standard is, particularly at home. We know the levels they have to get to. They know it as well. And I'd like to think they're a good group. They're a fantastic group. We don't have anything bad to say about them really as a collective with what they're achieving already this year, because we are
bad taste in fancy dress, I would.
Yeah, from some. But I have every faith that they will have the professionalism, as John said, and as I said a little bit earlier on this evening, to say to people, right, this is our turn to prove that life goes on, that our progress, that we have worked so hard to get to this point, we can be the group of players that carries that on. And this club doesn't need an overhaul in the summer when the new manager's in to take us forward. They have to go out there and prove it on Saturday. I firmly believe they will prove it on Saturday. And I will love it if we beat Birmingham. Love it.
Just very quickly, Finn Azaz got subbed off by Schumacher, in my opinion, very questionably at QPR after Dan Scar was sent off, and came out on Saturday and had probably his best performance of the season, or one of them certainly, where he was most influential. That's what we're looking for
agree.
from all of them, I think.
Yeah,
right.
Agreed.
I think that there's people like Joe Edwards in the dressing room as well who pretty much Mr. Plymouth Argyle now, isn't he? He's been captain for that many years and is massively influential every time we play in terms of, getting the players spirits up. I know it's cliche and stuff, but he's a very good captain. And I think he's a proper leader for that side, and he won't let anybody's heads go down. I also think, thank you very much, Stephen Schumacher, for everything you've done for us. But there is a lot more to Stephen Schumacher in this football club. Like, there is a lot more people that have made this happen as well. It's not just him, and he will say that himself, And I think the fans have a massive part to play in the reason why we have been so successful in the last few years, because we follow them every week up and down the country, and we have given Ryan Lowe and Stephen Schumacher a lot of time to make mistakes and get better. Fantastic job they both did, but we move on, and I'm optimistic for the future. I know it's a kick in the teeth, but I'm optimistic for the future, and I don't see why this should be a time to kind of curl up into a ball and hibernate and stop the progress that is happening. I think I'm incredibly optimistic, and provided we make the right appointment, which again I concur with the other lads that I have full faith in the board to make the right decision. We've got every reason to be excited and just look forward to a new era without that kind of Lowe and Schumacher bracket, because although Shuey has been brilliant, it was just a progression on the last era. So we haven't had any change for 4 or 5 years. So change always brings quite often brings excitement.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add when we get an hour and a half or nearly an hour and 45 minutes into a pod. I sort of we've ticked off all of my questions, so I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want to add. I don't think there's any questions that I've missed really. Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know what you guys want to add. I'm pretty
It's time to move on, Aaron. The past is the past. It's done.
Exactly.
It's time to move on, and it starts on Saturday.
I'm actually more annoyed about the pods that we're moving to 3 pods a week, by the way, in the new year. If you're not subscribed, go find us on all your major podcast platforms, your Spotify, your Apple podcasts. We're on YouTube now, aren't we, Joe? Like us on Facebook.
We're TikToking as well, aren't we?
Exactly. There's literally a list in the bottom right-hand corner, and I've not followed it. Social icons of where you can find us. Go follow us on all of those social media platforms. We'll be putting out this one. There'll be a post Birmingham reaction, and then that's it until the new year, in which we will recap all three games, New Year games, in one go. And we'll sort out Sutton and all of that. But in the new year, we're going to 3 pods a week. There's some My Argyle Lice from big names in the Argyle world coming out, although I believe all of them talk about Schumacher's greens. So a bit more editing to do, or I'll just put a voice note at the beginning letting you all know. We've got some more comments. No songs about Shuey on Saturday. Score predictions for Saturday. I think that's a bit silly. We don't really know what's going to happen.
3-0 Argyle. I'll go for it.
Yeah, I've gone 1-0.
What have you gone, Aaron? Yeah.
I've gone 1-0 Birmingham. Just Jay Stanfield, 89th minute, knife in the back.
No, Aaron, that already happened. That's already happened.
I know.
We have him removed as host. Can we start a mutiny?
4-1 Argyle. I think they will be angry.
I do. I agree. I think they'll be hurting. They'll be let down. They'll be let down, disappointed, hurting, and they'll have to prove a point.
Do you think they will be as angry though? But as when Lowe went, I appreciate I think footballers understand that there's no loyalty in football. And I think they understand that people move on. I appreciate the likes of came down for, mainly because of what Schumacher said and done. But there's a part of me that knows Schumacher definitely would not have left that squad without at least some sort of, at least some group call that said, thanks guys, whatever. Unlike Lowe, who seemed to just jump straight in the car and head straight onto Preston.
Having said that, I know I'm reading into social media here, but Mikael Miller literally put a post up on Instagram 2 days ago, which was a video of some guy throwing his phone when he looked at it back in the car, so he's obviously that was a coded message clearly, and that's a guy that's not very happy that the manager's left. That's not someone that's very happy. So if his reaction is got any resemblance to any of the rest of the squad, I do think they will be annoyed. Yeah.
I hope they go out there on Saturday, they put Birmingham to the sword, and Adam Randall gets the 3rd or 4th goal and just runs up to the Devonport end, lifts up his top, and has "Why Always Us" written on his Under Armour. If you're watching Rands or somebody who's going to be at training tomorrow, put it in his mind.
I also think that maybe sometimes, and this is really based on nothing I should say, but just common sense, I guess, that we all sort of assume that players live in this kind of separate world to the fans, and it's all completely divorced, and the fans have their takes and the players just think something completely different. And I'm sure that's true on some things some of the time, but they probably won't have seen this coming. They might have had more advanced warning a bit than us. I'm sure they would have done, in fact. But there's nothing to say that even if that's the case, that they've been hugely kept in the loop or clued in any more than we have. They may just have been feeding off the same media reports that we've been. I'm sure that Shuey hasn't been running every detail of his contract negotiation at Stoke past them. So so there's that. They might feel kind of blindsided as well. And I think, and on the same point, I don't see why their reaction, our reaction to Shuey, is more hurt than when Lowe left, because we all, bluntly expected that Lowe was a mercenary, was going to walk and go for the first job up north as soon as it came. And I'm sure that wasn't lost on the players either.
Very true.
I don't think it would require an enormous conspiracy of deception for everyone to have been faking the incredibly good vibes and special moment that's been happening at this club over the last season and a half. The players will have bought into that. If they hadn't, we wouldn't have had the success that we did. We just wouldn't. And so for that to be shattered when you thought you had something really special, it can't not hurt, right? And will there be people in the squad who are maybe less invested than others and, just think this is the way of the world and whatever, and they don't care? Sure. But I'm sure there are a lot who will be hurting and who actually really do care about this. And who, by the way, it's a very young squad. And so it's not like these players will have been around this kind of situation necessarily a ton, right? It's not like a squad of 35, 36-year-old mercenaries who have, themselves jumped between 100 clubs in their career and have seen managers do the same. A lot of them, Schumacher has been a really, really important figure for them because he's the one who's trusted them, got the best out of them. Again, as Finn and Joe have both said, I think within a system. But this is going to be significant for them. I don't see any way around that. So I think there will be a reaction. Now, I think I could be wrong, and the reaction could be a crisis of confidence or whatever, and we could just catch Birmingham on a bad day, which could happen, of course. But I really think there is no club that I would rather be playing at this level on Saturday than them at this moment in time. We played Rotherham last weekend to a bottom, and they gave us a really good, scrappy, hard, physical, overly so game. Wednesday in QPR, we know what they're doing at the moment. Stoke, I think that would be a bit of a baptism of fire for Shuey. It would be an uncomfortable afternoon for everyone concerned. Birmingham are, one of the clubs down there who just look like an absolute hopeless case at the moment. Not to say that they will continue to be forever, but this is a great time to be. They look like a team who, if you blow on them, they're going to fall over at the moment. And so if we blow on them very, very hard, then we've got a great chance of toppling them.
I think we forgot what I was going to say now. It's just been a whirlwind 48 hours. What can I say? I think if you this was it. You made a good point to me yesterday, John, when I said, "Oh, will some of the players have wanted to play for Schumacher?" And there might be a few there that are overly disappointed and now are sort of questioning their future at the club. I'm not saying that's the case, but there's always players that are enticed to a club by a manager, and then when that manager leaves, it leaves them like any job. There's their boss. They really like a boss, whatever. He leaves and what. So, but people like Morgan Whittaker, his partner, and him are obviously very settled in Plymouth and have a good rapport with the fans. So I think it will mean a bit more to a lot of players than just, our manager has left. One, their professional pride should always be there. And two, they will feel, by all accounts, most of the players really liked Shuey. So I'm sure they will. I mean, like as fans, I would be a bit put off. It's like, why have you left in the middle of a season when we are obviously doing very well for a team that is below us in the table, in whatever way you look at and however you want to look at Stoke as a club? The fact is they are not as good a team as us at the moment. We beat them 3 weeks ago. Yes, in the last minute, but I felt we deserved to win that game in the end. So again, I feel they'll be feeling maybe not the same level of hurt, but they will be feeling very similar to us.
I also think it takes some pressure off the game, perversely. Like, I think if none of this had happened and we'd all woken up tomorrow morning and it was a dream, right, and Shuey was still in charge, then the narrative around this game would be, Christ, this is an absolutely enormous game against a relegation rival. We absolutely need to win this game or get something out of it. I think there was talk going around, including among members of this podcast, about needing a sort of minimum of 5 points from the 3 games in QPR, Rotherham, Birmingham. Obviously, we didn't get 3 points at QPR, although we did get a good point. But that still means you have to get something out of the Birmingham game, right? And I just think with this, it just sort of overshadows everything to the extent where, of course, mathematically and just logically, the same truth still applies. But it's almost like if we lose, then it's very easily explainable, right? It's not like we bottled it against a relegation rival. It's the players have had a traumatic and difficult week, and it's everything's massively uncertain and up in the air, and the preparation was disrupted. And I just wonder if, whereas the Rotherham game, there was clearly huge pressure on the players, which they in the end, got through, but I don't think they thrived under it, given, we all saw the performance in the second half in particular. I just sort of wonder if maybe this actually perversely could just take the pressure off a little bit and allow them to sort of play football and feel like it's a game that now is kind of freighted with a different context than before.
And aside from that, the goal being huge in terms of getting 3 points at home against the bottom of the league, an actual game in the Championship we are expecting to win, probably. There's not many of them this season. And being a big 3 points in terms of, sort of regaining that cushion and sort of boosting confidence. I think going into this week and now, having seen Schumacher left, that last minute goal on Saturday was absolutely huge, because if we had drawn to Rotherham with 10 men and then we'd have gone into this week and our manager had left, I feel like the whole narrative around it might have been a lot more negative and been like, oh, well, fuck him anyway, because he went, sorry for the bad language, but like because we drew to the bottom of the league on Saturday and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, so I think the narrative on that goal has kind of changed, and the positivity around whether we can progress. Because again, if we had drawn on Saturday, the pressure on this Birmingham game absolutely huge, and now less so, and even less so. With what John said about the manager leaving and us having this kind of not excuse, but sort of explanations for why this Saturday and the next couple of weeks might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, there's a good comment here from Dave Searle that says, timing is shocking, but that's football. Refund my calendar, please. That's the second time that we've decided to put a manager on January, and it's we've had to reprint the thing. Not doing wonders for our green credentials, having to reprint endless calendars. Let's finish on one final question then. Will we finally win away now? I think it's destined for the Stars, isn't it? Boxing Day.
Oh yeah, we're winning at Cardiff, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. And I will say I don't think necessarily that Steven Schumacher was totally the reason we weren't winning away. But it might improve our chances a little bit.
We'll find out on Boxing Day, won't we?
Aaron, you did ask earlier if we had anything else to add. It should be mentioned, and it did catch my eye earlier today. The under-18s won 7-3 in a completely bonkers game against Newport today. I think they were 5-1 up at one stage, and then about 10 minutes later it was 5-3, and then they rattled off a couple of quick goals at the end. So.
Do you know what's even better about that 7-3 win is that
go on.
The Argyle official account retweeted it bang on 2:00, so everybody got a notification. That's incredible. That's class from the club. Big fan of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's Charlie Rose's work. Absolutely class. Big fan of it.
I hope Shuey's not poaching the social media people, because we need them to stay.
Oh no, we'll get one final match day moments up at the Bet365 in April. But yeah, on that, is there any closing comments you guys want to make? See you later.
I think I was going to say I think we've exhausted it all now, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think finally for me, I'm still I'm a very emotional man. I'm still trying to get my feelings in check on this one. I think seeing the photos and stuff of Schumacher looking around the Bet365 stadium, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's happened yet. I'm jumping on a Stoke Twitter space, so I can't wait to just.
I will say as a last thing, good luck to Steven Schumacher, but I won't be following their results this season. That's more a comment to Sam Down, by the way, if he's still watching.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I hope they. To be very, very clear, that Sam does not share this opinion. I'll let him defend that when he's next on. But
yeah. Okay. Let's call that a night. Remember, like I said earlier, subscribe to us on Apple Pods, Spotify. You can watch us on YouTube or on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all under the same handle of Argyle Life 1886. Argyle Life is a different name to Green and White Podcast. Don't know why. Don't ask me why. I didn't set it up. Find us there. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining me tonight on this emergency space. It's not space, is it? StreamYard, stream, whatever, pod, whatever. That's enough for tonight. See you later, boys. Cheers.
Cheers.
See you in 2 weeks for Duff, the manager we can believe in.
Baines is at the reins, the words of Sam Barker.